Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Regardless, I have names for you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the meeting to order. Councilmember Kaplan.
Here.
Councilmember De La Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Gross.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here.
Vice Mayor London.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Councilmember Gross, can you please lead the pledge?
Go, Gary. Go ahead.
Go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Feel like I was, feel like I was just talking to the girl next to me in the third grade there. Wasn't paying attention.
Can Councilmember Gross now lead the national anthem?
First item, Madam Mayor, is brief comments by council.
I have a brief comment about the boat show. Does anyone else have a comment?
One quick comment.
Okay.
Just that, again, anybody who hasn't yet to try Key Ride, you should try it. It's fantastic. The ridership is growing. The app is coming. During the month of March, we'll have an app, but in the meantime, you can use your cell phone. And in fact, I will tell you the number just in case anyone doesn't have it, which is
786.
786-361-8657. They're fantastic. They're great guys. Use it. You're paying for it.
Perfect. Also, I want to thank everyone who was involved in the Winter Concert Committee. We had a fabulous, fabulous event on Sunday. There was Brazilian music on the plaza, incredibly well attended, just fabulous, entertaining, a wonderful sense of community. Thank you all who planned it, and thank everyone who attended.
And there's opera Friday.
There is opera on Friday. Fair enough. And then I also did want to make some comments on the boat show event that took place on President's Day weekend. First, I want to thank everyone that mobilized in this community to mitigate the damage. I also would like to thank our first responders, our police and our fire departments who worked diligently for over a year to address safety concerns. If you drove over the causeway during the event, you would have observed that what many have referred to as a police presence that is usually only seen during when a state of emergency is declared. This was the high level of resources that were needed to mitigate the impacts. And this did not happen by accident, and it did not happen voluntarily. A lot of resources were expended by many agencies to make this happen. In fact, close to $1 million were expended in logistics alone. This is the level of resources that were needed to mitigate the impacts. And I also want to thank our village manager, John Gilbert, our council members, our residents, and our legal team. It was thanks to you all that we were able to limit the Class 1 permit to 2-year terms with over 60 conditions. Close monitoring and much-needed monitoring was imposed on this event. The type of temporary dock system that was going to initially be used was changed to a more environmentally friendly encapsulated foam type, and also we demanded an adequate traffic mitigation plan. Now, the energy and the money that our village spent on fighting this boat show made the situation tolerable instead of a total disaster. And while we still have to wait on impact valuations, final reports that have not that are still to be created, we know that there were issues. The Brickell, US 1, and Rickerbacker Causeway were slammed on Thursday. There were multiple environmental violations reported in the basin. A manatee was killed by a twin prop boat. Public beaches were closed. Marinas were closed. And our parks and businesses were affected by light patronage. And also, on the flip side, the boat show had some challenges. Their attendees traveled sometimes up to 4 hours to get to and from the show. and water taxis were very vulnerable to also to the congestion, but also they had to stop operation on Sunday due to inclement weather. This event is over. Unfortunately, we still do have concerns, and the fact that the city of Miami spent over $23 million on a flex convention center on that site, on that public park, is a concern. We cannot forget that this is not just about the boat show. It is about countless events that the city of Miami is planning on this site. And again, I want to thank everyone on our team, all of our residents, everyone who was involved for your hard work in the last year. It was very successful. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
Having heard the mayor talk about the challenges that were faced, I want to say that I believe that the traffic issue was a lot less than we expected it. I think it had a lot to do with our activity and what we did in order to make sure that it was as controlled as possible. And the boat show itself was I think a great boat show. I go to the boat show every year, and I think they did a really good job in putting it together. So, there was pros and cons, and even and we'll be talking about that for the next coming short future, and something will come of it. So thank you very much for being there with us.
Next item, please.
Next item of the mayor is approval of minutes of the February 9th, 2016 regular council meeting.
Move.
Agenda additions?
Oh, I apologize. Agenda approval, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
We have a couple, Mr. Kaplan and then Dr. Kelly.
I'd like to briefly discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly from the massed PTSA missives yesterday.
Nine
Hear the good, bad, and
9A4.
the ugly on that?
Good, bad, ugly.
I said missives, not missiles, but
Thank you. And Dr. Kelly?
I was going to ask the manager just to give us a quick update on the status of the new stop signs, which are slowly being installed, and it's not his fault, but we just want to figure out where we stand.
Okay.
Do you want that under the village manager or under mayor and council?
You can put it under me, and then he'll address it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. London?
On the possibility of being killed by my wife, I'd like to ask the attorney a question. Is it possible to defer the boat got me all confused. The dog park item on the agenda, and still, since obviously there's a lot of people here who want to speak on it, speak tonight to the council and defer to the next meeting, the actual vote, or does it all have to be done at the same time?
No, I'm sorry. You can.
Excuse me, that's in deference to Theo, who's not here, and Gary, who needs more information, who just joined us.
Absolutely. No, a deferral certainly in order. But I would suggest that it be actually continued to a date certain and a time certain so that we don't have to re-advertise.
Well, I'm saying to the next, in other words, so we go through the thing and make the comments, and then we could defer.
No, you can at this moment, if there's a motion and a second, you could actually defer it now. But what I'm saying is I just be sure that you defer it to a particular date. Okay, and at 7 p.m. Not that it'll be heard, but it'll be heard after 7 p.m. On the next meeting, is what I understand.
Okay. But I guess my question is, can the people who came this evening to speak for and against it still speak this evening? Because they all came, and it would be a shame if they couldn't. That's all.
I would just add, Mr. London, that we generally do not have public comments at this meeting. Because we have an audience, was going to obviously permit it because it would be wrong to send you all home. But if we're not going to discuss the item, you all may want to think about how you're going to be most effective.
Okay.
I would say, I'd just like to make a motion to continue this to the next meeting. And I think that it's so difficult, and all of these people have lives outside. If they're here, We ought to just hear them out tonight. We'll be able to remember their words next meeting when we take our vote.
Great.
So we solve both.
I'll second your motion.
Okay.
Solve both issues at one
Good.
setting.
So what I would suggest is that that you act on the deferral first, and then that you add an item to the agenda, which would be a item for public comments for this evening, and that way the people that are here could speak.
I have a
I'd move
procedural
to-
question.
Move to do
Oh,
that.
We don't need to open the public hearing and
No,
then
these are not,
continue it? No?
this is not going to be part of the public hearing or part of the ordinance. This is just people who want to be heard during public comments on a particular issue that we will take up in the future.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to continue item 7B2 to the next council meeting, which is
March 8th.
March 8th at 7 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I would move to add for public comment prior to item 6.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, second.
Okay, so you're going to add a section for public comments, and I understand that that's limited to the dog park issue.
Yes.
No,
Okay.
it's not going to be limited to the dog park issue.
Okay.
Do we need to vote on that? I mean, we usually
there was
vote
an item-
at the end after everybody adds the items.
Then you should do what you usually do.
Right. I don't
From
know
all-
if there are any other additions or deferrals. Is that it, Madam Mayor?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all those in favor of the agenda changes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the approval of the minutes of the February 9th, 2016 regular council meeting.
Move.
Second.
Please call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the next item is public comments, Madam Mayor.
Terrific. We're going to start with Megan London. If you could please come up to the podium.
Hi, good evening. I would just like to...
Can you state your name and address for the
sorry.
record, please?
Yes, it's Megan London, 737 Ridgewood Road, Key Biscayne, Florida 33149. I would just like to share my thoughts and my opinion on the dog park. We have 3 dogs and 2 cats, and I've worked at a vet for over 8 years, so I'm very familiar with animals. I just want to kind of point out the benefits really quick of animals. They have actually been proven in the last 2 years that dogs can snuff out cancerous tumors, and they help lower cholesterol, they help socialization, they are great companions. So the benefits of animals to humans is endless. There's not enough time for me to say what they can contribute to people. But for them to be able to do that, they have to be healthy themselves. We live in a community where the property is very small, as well as a lot of people live in apartments. Where I came from, we had endless amounts of land, so it wasn't as big of a concern. But having a lab that loves to run, she really needs the space to do so to remain healthy and active, especially as she's getting older. With the lack of a dog park, we really don't have the ability for her to do that. Everywhere she goes, she has to be on a leash. Now, speaking of the leash law is actually proven to be more effective in communities that have dog parks. You have less trouble, you have less tickets, you have less issues with people keeping their animals on leashes. So I think that the dog park is a really, really beneficial to our community. I think a lot of people moving here, having it, I don't see a reason why we would not have it. We have such great resources here. We are such a, not speaking negatively about any other communities, we are such an advanced community. I think we have the highest education level here. I do not see the reason we would not have it. There is no advantage of not having it. So I hope that you will take that under consideration whenever you do make your vote and go dog park.
Thank you. Thank you. Servando Parapar.
Servando Parapar, 240 Cypress Drive, Key Biscayne. I have been talking with some of you, and I have heard the comments that the city of Miami have been able to do the same amount of square footage for half the price. Well, I took it upon myself to go personally to visit the park. I went and visited Blanche Park, and I visited Margaret Pace Park. The one that is most awfully compared is Margaret Pace Park, which is about the same amount of surface. But Lord and behold, it's a totally different park. You have the drainage is a lot simpler. It's just grade to one single catch basin about 5 feet into a French drain. There are just some mature trees on the outside perimeter. In the inside perimeter, there is absolutely only 5 or 6 new trees that they just put on it. So you cannot compare square footage cost of one to another. You have to know what type of drainage you need here, what conditions you have, and you have an excess of 18 mature trees in this site that need to be protected from that drainage, because if you destroy the roots, you destroy the trees, and those trees are irreplaceable. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next is Michael Davey.
You guys are just messing with me, right? I mean, it's been 9 years we've been doing this. I know this is deferred. I've got Theo right now on Messenger. He just got a message from me. He will be here March 8th, or he will not be at another council meeting ever. Guys, please, let's just get this done. 9 years. Come on, Gary. You got any questions? Ask me. I'm happy to help. Anything you want to know? We need your votes. We need this passed. Let's just move it along. I just want to say we've done this, and we can all be happy. We can walk. I don't even have dogs anymore. That's how long this thing's been going on. All right, 9 years.
They all died.
So let's just please move it along. Let's get going. And thanks very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Alejandro Seizold. Seizold.
Sorry. He's delayed, so he's not going to be able to make it.
Christina Seizold, you're next.
This doesn't move? No. Christina Figueredo Seizold, 798 Cranon Boulevard. Good evening, Mayor Peña-Lindsay and council members. Welcome, Councilmember Gross. We look forward to seeing a dog park on Key Biscayne. Regarding the artificial turf on the dog park on the Village Green, Mayor Peña-Lindsay, I have questions for you. Currently today, what U.S. federal agency stands behind the safety of artificial turf with or without crumb rubber?
We don't entertain questions from the podium.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Peña-Lindsay, are we, the Village of Key Biscayne, moving forward with artificial turf on the dog park based on only the industry's marketing assurances? To date, no expert of the following federal agencies, the CDC, the EPA, the CPSC, vouch for the safety of any type of artificial turf with or without crumb rubber. Also, we haven't received an answer. What is the bonded mulch in the dog park plans? Is it bonded mulch made of recycled tire? We asked the question. The CDC, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, states the plastic blades of grass degrade into a dust, and exposure to it poses a potential human health hazard. Therefore, the CDC has actually issued a health alert recommending the testing of the plastic blades of grass that are brazed, faded, broken, or contain visual dust. As you're aware, there's a petition with over 550 petitioners who have signed it. Let's keep the Village Green natural grass, no artificial turf. There are many different reasons why Key Biscayneers have signed the petition for keeping the Village Green natural grass, no artificial turf. Here are a few. For the health of pets, people, and the environment. While the decision to install the turf is well-intentioned, the mounting evidence against this use is too much of a concern to ignore. I'm signing because the special thing about Key Biscayne is the natural environment, and I strongly disagree to use artificial turf on the Village Green. Plastic is a carbon derivative pollutant element. Natural grass, by definition, is organic, alive. It recycles carbon dioxide into oxygen. It's natural, non-polluting. Nature is something we need to preserve, not replace. I love our island paradise and want to keep it as natural and healthy as possible. Parks should have grass in the largest open space on the island. We need to keep our village green really green, not plastic. The health of tomorrow is the responsibility of making the right decisions today. The village green needs to be preserved. Again, we look forward to seeing a dog park in Key Biscayne. For the safety, health, and welfare of the Key Biscayne community, let's preserve the village green natural grass. Please do not move forward with a dog park that includes artificial turf. Thank you and good evening. Thank you.
Carlos Fernandez.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Carlos Fernandez, 615 Harbor Circle. I want to thank Mr. London for extending the decision on this issue. I just want to go on the record on an email that I circulated to some of the village members, to the council members. And this regards the park that was mentioned by the previous gentleman. The city of Miami inaugurated a half-acre dog park on Bay Shore, 1745 Bay Shore, that includes 2 fenced areas, one for dogs over 25 pounds, another for a smaller dog. The daughter area will offer park benches, fire hydrants, and fountains for dogs and people, artificial turf, mulch, the whole thing. My question to the council is, why is our dog park estimated to cost $867,000, which is more than twice what this dog park cost? Is this proper stewardship of our funds? For a small strip of land that has many nice, trees, that I think that they should be there, because if there is one thing that dogs love, are trees. I think that, I don't know, I don't see any reason to move any trees or do anything. I don't have any problems with having a dog park. I just don't think we should spend $1 million in this endeavor. There are many other things that are needed to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire London.
Claire Amarina London, 736 Crest Road, and Madison London, 737 Ridgewood Road. Thank you, Council, again for supporting the dog park and our committee. I'm a member of the dog park committee. We're excited to have the possibility to finally move forward with the permanent dog park. Let's build it once and build it right. The dog park committee, with the help of Todd, has organized 3 very successful community events in the last 6 months. We had Blessing of the Animals, which is always popular, and our highly attended annual Halloween event, which actually when we started counting heads, people had already started to leave. There were 240 people there. That's not including dogs. Last week, it was February 18th, we had the Doggy Love Fest, and that was organized with food and wine outside, which turned into a lovely gathering. Some people stopped by to talk and have a drink. They didn't even have a dog. And we foresee that this could be there could be community and holiday events happening quite a bit in the new dog park. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the holiday party because of the heavy rains, resulting in this terrible flood that we do have with the regular turf. Key Biscaynes expect top quality and high standards. Most people care deeply about keeping the Key visually beautiful. It is most important to have the quality of the dog park be in keeping and integrated with the rest of the village green, not just something at the end that we've just dumped in the end. It should be an area that will bring people and their dogs together, and a place that people will want to spend time. People do want to come, but they don't want to have to wash their dogs and their shoes when they leave the dog park. Artificial turf is practical and in the long run fiscally responsible. The pet artificial turf holds no dangerous carcinogens, especially no rubber crumb infill. In the long run, the wonderful beauty and practicality of the dog park will be yet another asset to the Key, something we can be proud of, bringing locals together in lovely surroundings. We are very excited to finally have a permanent dog park. Please vote yes, and thank you again for listening.
Thank you. Katie Petros, Dog Park Chairperson.
Good evening. Katie Petros, 375 Redwood Lane. Members of the council, thank you for getting us to the point we find ourselves now. After many years of campaigning, planning, and compromise, you have come to a final vote to start construction on our permanent dog park at the north end of the village green. Along the way, there have been questions, concerns, and even some controversy over different components of establishing a park on our island where dogs can run freely and their owners can meet and spend time together on any given day. Your previous approval of the temporary park has allowed us to test the feasibility and popularity of having such a venue. It has proven to be an overwhelming success, and you have responded to it by voting to proceed with plans for a permanent park every step of the way. You chose the landscape architect and approved their design of a beautiful park that is consistent with the other buildings and parks that have been built since we incorporated almost 25 years ago. The price is substantial, but we know you and previous councils have faced this before. I ask you to recall the village green, public sidewalks, and the community center. There was strong opposition to the cost of all these projects, but other individuals sitting in your seats chose to push forward despite these concerns. Our community is richer for their actions. We have researched the concern about artificial turf and now know that the materials used in dog parks are not the ones causing concern about public safety, specifically the rubber tire infill and lead agents in paint. While I think all of us, myself included, would prefer a beautiful, healthy grass surface on the ideal park, we have seen the deterioration of the temporary park surface, including persistent mud that exists, which makes going to our current park a very dirty affair. The most recent expenditures to regain a healthy natural grass turf on the playing fields have met with limited success. Given that our park will be in a much shadier area with limited airflow, it will be virtually impossible to maintain grass in a healthy and robust way. It does not seem responsible of our committee to recommend anything other than artificial turf for the long-term beauty and maintenance costs of the area. Pets provide companionship for all ages. This park will benefit all human and dog age groups. You don't have to look further than your own front door to see the increase of dogs here. And just like humans, dogs need exercise and socialization. They become better neighbors when they get both of these. Walking a dog on a leash often does not provide adequate exercise and certainly doesn't address their need for socialization. We are not the first to notice these facts. Parks that allow dogs are on the upswing in communities all around Dade County. The result of a recent phone survey found no less than 34 parks that let dogs run free and 19 more that allow them on a leash within the park. Key Biscayne is one of only 7 incorporated areas that doesn't provide either. We hope all of you will recognize that while some have expressed reservations regarding this park as it is currently designed, the benefits outweigh these by a large margin, and it makes good sense for our community to move forward now and get this park built. We hope you will agree with us and vote yes for the second and final time. Thank you.
Thank you. Natalia Reparaz.
Good evening, council members. My name is Natalia Reparaz. I live at 301 Sunrise Drive, Key Biscayne. I'm very excited to have a permanent dog park, and I would like to oppose artificial turf. It's been proven to be carcinogenic. And please, if you don't want to spend money on real grass, on the maintenance maybe, consider using sand or pebbles. That could be another option. But please don't put plastic on the floor for dogs or anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie Kellogg.
Hi, good evening. Jackie Kellogg, 115 Sunrise Drive.
And Monica Lariva, 348 Glen Ridge.
Quickly, I wanted to come tonight to discuss remarks made on a newsletter that was sent by the PTA president of Mass Academy. I'm actually the vice president of membership, and I would like all of you to know that I did not see a draft of that newsletter before it was sent out. I would have highly advised an edit and a period perhaps to cool down and to do some fact checking. The letter mentions the ugly behavior of Key Biscayne officials and a particular person from the Key Biscayne Soccer Club. So I am perfectly confident that you can defend yourselves, but I need to defend an individual that was outed publicly badly. First of all, the person that this newsletter mentions is actually probably one of the highest ranked soccer referees in the state of Florida. He teaches courses throughout the state of Florida that I have taken, my son has taken, most referees in South Florida have taken. Key Biscayne has contracted him for probably over 15 years, and it's not an easy job. So to let you know, his job is to come to the field and secure the field and make sure a game goes on. He was denied access to the field, and that had been made perfectly clear that throughout the fundraiser of parking cars at Mass Academy, the field would be open with residents allowing to use the field, and there's a lot in front of the field that's not paved. And that was the compromise that was reached. The village manager sent a letter to that effect. I saw it. It was discussed at the PTA board meeting. So I was surprised that this was still an issue. At the end of the day, from what I've learned, I think it was a tremendous coup that the fundraiser happened, that they were able to raise the amount of money they did, considering everything in place to make sure the traffic flow was good and the fields were open. So Monica and myself are very involved with the school, much really to bridge communication and to continue the development and the progressive development of all the good things that we feel Mass will offer this community. I would like to hand the official reply from the person in question for your records. And
Thank you very much, Ms. Kellogg. Please give it to the clerk. Thank you.
And I'm just here really to support what Jackie's saying, but also just to encourage the partnership between Key Biscayne and Mass, and obviously it has to go both ways. We really need to, improve on that. I think a lot of other parents called and saw this PTSA memo that went out, and they all felt the same way. That does not represent the majority. It was a very small group that had those feelings. We really wanted to stop that letter from being shared before it was discussed internally, but it does not represent the feelings of the majority at all.
That's very good to know.
On bridging this gap between the school, because it's still very divisive in there.
Thank you both for coming. Madam Clerk, my last comment is for the hearing, so I'm going to hold off on it until we get there. We can continue with our agenda. I'm closing public comments.
Okay, so the next item on the mayor is building, zoning, and planning. Public hearing number RV 36. Applicant Gerda Guggenheim, location 120 Cape Florida Drive. The applicant is requesting the following variances: to exceed the maximum 9-foot 3-inch projection of a dock from a bulkhead by 9 feet 5 inches, to permit a maximum projection of 18 feet 8 inches. And second, to exceed the maximum 18 feet 6-inch projection of a mooring by 20 feet 2 inches, to install 2 mooring piles that are 38 feet 8 inches from the bulkhead.
Thank you. I will open.
Before we go ahead, I need to swear in all the witnesses.
Please.
Right. Let's wait until. Can you please, we have still a meeting going on? All witnesses giving testimony in this hearing, please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. We haven't had a variance in a long time, so these are somewhat unusual. This is a single public hearing. It deals with property at 120 Cape Florida Drive. The zoning is single family, and the zoning district allows for boat docks. There are two variances. One would allow the dock to project 18 foot 8 inches, where 9 foot 3 inches allowed. The second one would allow mooring piles to project 38 feet 8 inches, where 18 feet 6 inches is allowed. Pines Canal is approximately 150 to 162 feet deep. The applicant has submitted a letter from Durham, or the successor agency from Durham, that determines that this is the minimum setbacks and minimum projections that they would allow in order to preserve the seagrasses. We have two criteria in our code to help us evaluate variances. I reviewed those for you and I provide my analysis for them, and I believe that both of these variance applications are consistent with the criteria. What we've experienced during the past several years, both scientifically and anecdotally, is that seagrasses are coming closer to the shoreline. We suspect this is due to the lack of hurricanes, and their seagrass populations are being extremely successful. The applicant is basing their primary reason for these variances based upon the Durham requirement. They went in to obtain a permit from Durham to do work on the dock, and Durham required these requirements. So with that, we're recommending approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to open, yes.
What was the recommendation?
The recommendation was for approval. I'd like to open this for public hearing, public comments. Dennis?
No, I didn't make the motion.
Solano?
Yeah.
I'm Dennis Solano. I'm an engineer for the last 21 years in Miami-Dade County. So I'm representing also Mr. Guggenheim, which is the homeowner. And basically, the issue with the dock is basically environmental concern. Mr. Guggenheim, based on the size of the mooring piles and the size of his dock, he had the legal right since 1978 to have the size of the boat that he currently has on his lot. The Durham came into effect in Miami-Dade County 10 years ago, and this is basically a problem with Durham. Mr. Guggenheim was doing a seawall repair. Durham came to the inspections. They found out that in low tide, the water depth was not sufficient to boat a 60-foot boat, and that's why they issued a violation. But it's mainly an environmental issue, and the plans that we have here, he's happy with exactly the dock that he has right now, but in a good faith, he's trying to comply with Durham in order to save the resources. And basically, these plans, the plans that we're trying to get approved, they represent the wish of Durham, and we are basically a link between the city of Key Biscayne and Durham at this moment. We are also, we are not setting any precedent on this case because Durham itself gave us 2 cases where they had the same conditions, exactly the same variance, and it was approved by the city of Key Biscayne as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Judd, I have 2 questions for you. I went down the Pines Canal on Google Earth, and I saw that there are different variations of docks. And how far out does this one go out relative to the other docks I saw going westbound?
I'm not familiar with that, how far the other docks go out, but I would imagine that there are several docks project different projections because over the years we've been changing our dock regulations.
Can you please go on Google Earth and not imagine and know? Because it's going to impact my decision making.
Sure.
I mean, I think the question that, one of the questions that you're posing is this going to become a hazard to navigation?
And that's exactly,
if
first I
all of
wanted
the other docks
correct.
and mooring piles stick out 20 feet, and these are going to be...
No, 9 feet. Oh,
9 feet versus 18.
The mooring
The moorings
piles...
are good, not
Yeah,
20
yes,
feet.
and that's in-
No, but the mooring piles, I think, aren't they?
Right, right. The 20, and then these are going to be 40.
I'm sorry.
38. These will be 38.
38 feet into...
28 feet.
38.
38.
So that
38
was
feet into the canal.
correct. That was my concern.
I don't know, but my concern is that if
We need
this
to know.
boat is sitting out further into the canal than any of the others, it could potentially be a hazard.
Yeah.
Please, Mr. Solano, come up to the podium.
I just want to add that the plans were approved by Durham, and basically they really take into account the navigation and also the Army Corps of Engineers when they issue permits, because they have sufficient, would say, width for a boat to navigate along the canal, and the both plans have been approved by Durham and the Army Corps of Engineers. So it's basically this is basically represent the wish of Durham. And Mr. Guggenheim is happy exactly what dog he has. He's just trying to comply in a good faith and increase the dog size in order to protect the resources.
And I appreciate that. I just want to make sure, but that's very helpful. But I want to make sure with some. Mr. Dela Cruz and Mr. Guggenheim, please come up as well. But Mr. Dela Cruz, you had a question? Thank you.
I have, yeah, but I mean, if he has something to say, I'll wait for
Yes, Mr. Guggenheim.
We have the plans and so forth.
Can you state your name and address, sir?
I'm sorry?
State your name and address.
My name is Jose Guggenheim. I live in 5 Beverly Ridge Terrace, Beverly Hills, California. I lived here for over 25 years, traded hurricanes for earthquakes for whatever reason. But having said that, Lino, our engineer, explained that this was the result of a seawall repair that we did. And when they were inspecting the property, they noticed that the property being rented to Dr. Murciano, his 60-foot yacht, was leaving tracks during low tide. And they made him remove the boat within 7 days or subject to a fine of $15,000 a day. Since 2 years ago, that boat is being parked outside of the property to comply with Durham, with the existing dock. I came here to Key Biscayne in 1976. House was built with my dad in 1978. Every single street that I walked, there was almost no houses, had the same dock that they have now. With regards to the dimension, the size of the waterway is 160 foot from one side to the other, and according to Durham, the center line for the boat passage is 92 feet from my seawall. I will be extending 9 feet from the existing 9 feet that I have right now on the dock that was there in 1976 when I was young and I walked there. So how that presents a hazard with such distances, I'm a little confused.
Just asking the question, want to make sure that we are being prudent.
And yes, and you have all the rights to do so. This is probably one of the larger canals on the Key. I used to drive boats all the time. We had a big boat when I lived there. And we're not protruding, and we can make these plans accessible to you in any way to create a hazard. What I am very concerned as a homeowner is that I don't think, from walking and being familiar with Key Biscayne, living here 25 years and going out on a boat every day, that my case is an isolated case, because somehow I became now a magnifying glass to Durham, and Durham have decided to apply it to me and give me a hard time. But I wouldn't be surprised that this hardship could be brought to other residents of Key Biscayne. Second of all, if I can't bring a 60-foot boat to my house, how am I going to rent it? What's the value of my property going to happen when I want to own any size boat that I want, and now I can't bring it to my dock? I mean, this is the reason we all want to live in South Florida. And, you know, what's the importance of having the boat show here is because people are boat people, that most of us enjoy going out on the boats. This really raises a huge concern. I didn't know any of this until Durham just came hard and gave us unbelievable hardship. I've subjected the tenants to an incredible financial burden with this, and I'm concerned. I'm not asking to do anything that hasn't been done on the city already. 2 other docks exceed what I'm doing. One on Harbor
Drive and one in Mashta. Both of them are 20 feet. I'm asking for 18. So I ask for your help.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Delacroix.
Okay, so here's the deal. If we approve this, we have to be very conscious that everybody else there on Pines Canal is probably going to come out here at some point to have their docks extended twice as far out as they presently are. So that's just what we're facing. If we want to do that, then let's do it. If we don't want to do that, then we can't do it, because he's got a perfectly usable dock as it is right now, from what I understand. I think Judd told me that he had a dock. I was called by two different people. I didn't even know that this was an issue until I saw the agenda, and I was called by two different residents who said, you know, they don't understand why this is coming before the village council, because, you know, Judd's office is really very vigilant of this kind of stuff, and they never approve this kind of variance. And I said, okay, well, I'll look into it. And my bigger concern is that, you know, Pines Canal is one big canal there. So if we allow this one property to jut out twice as far as all the other docks that are there, then we just have to understand that the majority of them are going to do the same thing, you know. So if that's what we want to do, we want to open the floodgates, then let's do it. If not, then we can't do it. You know?
Please, we're having a discussion now. Please have a seat.
Okay.
Mr. London, Dr. Kelly, and then Gary Gross. Mr. Gross.
The newbie down here.
The newbie. Again, there's no houses on the other side. You're bordering the park, correct?
Correct.
Number two, you say that it's not a problem to navigation. Why would we want to stand in the way, since it's not going to affect navigation, it's not going to affect neighbors across the street, and what's the difference if everybody wanted to have it up and down Durham? You say we're opening the floodgate. Why are we restricting a floodgate? Why are we trying to deprive these people of something that Durham will permit them, and it won't affect neighbors and it won't affect navigation? I don't understand.
We can put it out 50 feet then.
Well, I don't know how far you can put it out. Again, it's up to Durham and up to navigation, Army Corps of Engineers.
Worries about
Well, the Army Corps of Engineers, they worry about navigation. Excuse me. I got the wrong agency.
And then?
So that's why I don't see why we'd even try to restrict or be concerned about other people doing the same
I
thing.
think we're making a big decision here. I need more information. I just don't know what to tell you.
Okay. Are you done, Ed? Can I?
I'm completely finished.
Okay. Dr. Kelly.
Judd, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we eliminate the triangle that the dock had to sit into? And just to give a little historical perspective, you know, we used to have these dock issues all the time in my first couple of years on the council. And we kind of realized that the problem that the homeowners were facing was that our zoning laws were trying to preserve the sight lines of the adjacent homeowners and keep the dock as close to the property as possible. But the homeowners were facing the issue from Durham that they want the dock out as far as possible, because if it's too close, it damages the seagrass. And we kind of reached an understanding after a lot of debate on the council that we were going to eliminate the sight lines criteria via this triangle, and we would instead require a certain amount of distance on either side of the dock space, and that we recognized this hardship that Durham was imposing on what was a boating community, and we wanted to help our neighbors be able to have a dock, because in many of these cases, our decision was determining whether they could have a dock or not. So I think that's how we got to this point, and I think I agree with Ed that we probably are creating a situation where other homeowners, well, we're not creating the situation, but Durham has created a situation where if anybody rebuilds their dock, if they become dilapidated, Durham is going to require them to build it longer to save the seagrass. And we're going to be faced, well, either we let them build it longer or they can't have a dock. So I think at the end of the day, we're a boating community, we got to help people have docks. So I would vote for this.
Mr. Gross, and then Mr. Kaplan.
Remember your name, newbie.
You remembered. I have a question. I think I understood what you said, that you have a very serviceable dock where you have it, except for the fact that Durham made you move your boat because it was disrupting the seagrass. Is that correct?
No. The dock, like I said before, was there in 1976. It's completely rotted out, and it's a hazard. So I need to change it because they cannot walk on the dock. Somebody's going to get hurt. If you look at the mooring piles on the other side, they look like little sticks with a triangle like this, and we need to remove them before they fall on the water. This was far beyond its lifetime. I mean, this thing is, I don't even know when they put them in 76, whether they were done in 1970. I will say this, that unless something is done, we need to remove the dock. But Durham is going to come back in and say, okay, you want to build it 9 foot like you were saying? Well, what boat is coming in here before you build it? And that is what is scaring me as a precedent from them now. They have us under their radar. I need to change the dock.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I just wanted to clarify that. Once again, we find ourselves at odds with Durham, and it's so strange that Durham is making us violate our zoning rules in order to allow you to build a dock. And if they say no and we say no, then you don't get to build a dock. So in all fairness, I believe that you and everyone else that lives on the water have a right to have a dock behind your house, and if that's the only way you can have it, then I would say let's approve it. Having said that, I want to address my other council members, which I can't do except in a meeting, except when Ed whispers in my ear here. Is there any possibility that we could talk to someone in Durham and explain to them the conflict that they're creating for us? Or I'm not talking about in terms of approving or not approving this. I'm talking about going forward to see if possibly we could work something out with them, or is that just a ridiculous concept?
I mean,
I'm not going to answer that because I have my own views. Council, do you have a response for that, or
I think
Mr. Kaplan?
You want to? I'll tell you my opinion, but go ahead.
We have the experts.
I don't think that my experience with Durham on this issue is they like to push this issue on the municipalities. You are not the only community. We deal with it in Bal Harbor. I'm dealing with it in Golden Beach. It's all over the place. And they're putting these municipalities under this pressure to grant variances from their own ordinances. I'm not sure how many municipalities have been pushing back. But this is sort of a shoving it to the city and saying, listen, you got to, your ordinances don't allow them to go out here. But each one of these is fairly unique because not every waterway is the same condition. There may be some room in negotiating with Durham in this particular instance. I don't know how rigid they're going to stick to their conditions. A lot of it has to do with the size of the boat also. In other words, there's a certain draw in these, how much water depth there is. So will they negotiate with you? I've seen them do it. Will they grant you a blanket waiver of their requirements? Not going to happen. So in each instance, they do make some concessions. I don't know what kind of conversation they've had with the biologist and everybody else there, and I don't know the conditions here. There may be some room for negotiation, but I doubt that they're going to give you any kind of blanket waiver of their regulations.
Okay, well, I appreciate that answer, and I was thinking of exactly the opposite situation. I have no problem with this dock because it is at a very wide point in Pines Canal, and I don't think it's going to create a problem for boats or anybody else. However, we've got a lot of people with waterfront homes that are situated in much narrower canals, and if they come up with the same issue, they're going to be dead in the water.
Well, they
because
do,
they're not
and
going to be
what, and
able
what
to
you're
build it.
hearing, and what
So-
you're hearing is that they told these applicants, "Oh, Key Biscayne grants variances. You got to go back over there. They've granted, several of these already, so they already know that you all are willing to vary your regulations, and they're happy to stick to what their guidelines are."
I'd just like to see if there's a way we can talk to somebody there to try to head this off and avoid future problems when somebody has a house at a waterway that isn't wide enough to grant this kind of variance, and then everybody's going to have a problem.
Dr. Kelly gave some history here, and we've attempted to revise our regulations so we don't have these coming in all the time. And frankly, we've limited the applications now by changing our regulations. This is one where even complying with our regulations, they still don't meet Durham's requirements.
In this instance, first of all, the answer to the question on Durham, I don't think Durham will give leeway where seagrass is affected. And seagrass would be implicated, I gather, if they simply followed our geography, which we amended. We pulled it out during this conversation to see. We amended this just a little while ago, within the last 2.5 years. But seagrass is seagrass, and they're not going to have license to give dispensation from impacting seagrass beds. The element that saves this for me is the standards for encroachment into the waterway are expressed as a lesser than. You're well within the greater of the two elements of the lesser than. You're not well within the lesser of the lesser than, but I don't think it impacts anybody potentially forever in this instance. I am not real thrilled with the way this was presented because this hasn't come up in years.
Yeah.
The policy decisions and neighborly fracasses that were developing that caused us to amend this ordinance in the first place were very serious. And I would have appreciated some policy discussion so as to remind us what we did, why we did it, and what the impacts on the policy effects in our current ordinance would be if we granted this variance. This memo in support is of no help to me at all, and the fact that the canal is 160 feet wide says nothing to the issue that you first spoke to, because the navigable area is not up against the far bank. It's a silly thing to even talk about because it doesn't help us understand the resulting geography at all. So I'd like us to do a little bit better in memoing these things so that we understand what the policy was in our ordinance and how this deviates from it. And if the conclusion is that there's no adverse consequence, I think prove it. Because when I vote on a variance, which we do very infrequently, I'd like there to be in the record a justification that helps us down the road in distinguishing this decision from another decision that is not predicated on a similar no consequence result. And I don't know that we have the easy ability to do that at the dais right now without help. But I think that, just Mike, when you were speaking about the amendment, we still retain a triangle. We still retain a geography. The purpose of that was predicated on a certain distance from the seawall. And among other things, it was designed to limit the beam of the boat. It has to fit within a triangle, so it has to be a limited length. And one of the purposes for that, which was the big fracas a few years ago, was so that the vessels with big superstructures wouldn't extend so far out as to create a visual barrier from a neighboring property.
I think I'm remembering it different from you because I thought we had eliminated the triangle and just specified the distance from either end of the dock, but I could be wrong. I thought that was the problem,
Okay.
that we kept running into issues with the triangle.
Okay, Mr. Dela Cruz, thank you for your patience.
Before we vote on this, which in my mind, and I know it's probably not in all of yours, but in my mind is we're amending our code to make it so that anybody can come in here and get the same variance. I'd like to hear from Christina and or Enrique Murciano, who live on the same canal, and see what their take is on this particular issue. Would you mind talking about it, Christina?
I believe they were not sworn in.
We're going to need to swear them in.
Right.
And actually, I believe in the past we've also gotten, just for good policy, or as a good policy, we've gotten letters from our neighbors asking what their impacts are. People have weighed in for variances generally.
They are living in the house. It's their house.
What?
Their house.
Christina, before you speak.
I just want to make sure
You need to, yeah.
My name is Christina Murciano. I live in 120 Cape Florida Drive. I'm the tenant. So I know it's been a nightmare for 2 years. I got the letter from Durham saying we had to move our boat in 1 day, which is very difficult in Florida. There's not that much, marinas that will take your boat in 1 day, thanks to the Key Biscayne Yacht Club, who are accommodated, and we've been back and forth flipping our boats through Florida, through Coral Gables, Marina, Montes, and so on. It has been a burden on us. I don't think it will have any impact. I mean, I don't know if any of the neighbors are here, but I don't think it will have any impact. The canal is very wide, and it's only 9 feet. That is my opinion, and I would appreciate it if it could be approved, because we've been living 3 years in this condition, but since the letter, I think it's 2.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, it turns out we were both correct. There still is a triangle, but it only applies to bayfront properties, not to canal front properties. So
I'd like to say something for the record. We'll get to a vote on this. I don't intend this to be a blanket waiver. I don't intend this to be a standing variance for all properties, either on canals or in the bay. This is a case-by-case analysis. In this particular case, I don't see a problem here.
Thank you. And I think that's why variances are done. It's not blanket. It is case by case.
Can we call the question?
I believe we're ready. Closing your discussion, and Madam Clerk, please call the question.
Right, it needs to be a roll call.
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Lindsay?
Yes.
Vice Mayor London?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilmember De La Cruz?
Yes.
Councilmember Gross?
Yes.
Variance is approved. The next item, Madam Mayor,
Congratulations,
is the second reading of a capital project authorizing ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the purchase of the real property located at 401 Hampton Lane, Key Biscayne, Florida, 33149, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Do I have a
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Since it is the second reading, Madam Mayor, we need to open the public hearing.
I will be opening the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to this ordinance?
I don't have anybody signed.
I have someone approaching the podium. If you could please.
Mike Davey, 50 Ocean Lane Drive. I think this is a no-brainer, but I'm for this. I mean, I know I've spoken against pocket parks in the past, but there are certain circumstances, and this is one of them where the neighbors want it, everybody wants it, just get it done. Okay?
Thank you.
You're shaking your head.
My campaign contribution is intact now.
Would anyone like to, any other member of the public like to speak to this item? I'm closing the public comment.
Just
Yes.
before you vote, very quickly, I just want you to know that assuming this is approved, we're going to be closing Today is the 24th. The 28th is the planned closing. There was also some suggestion and some rumors that came to me that somehow the village was paying a commission or something for this. That's not the case. There is no commission being paid. Scott Hardy has, as best as I know, and I've been dealing with him, been doing this without any fee or commission, and really for the benefit of the village. So I just wanted to make clear that the price you see here is the price we're paying. It does not include a commission, and there's been no negotiations in terms of any fees or commissions being paid.
Thank you for clarifying that. I did not know it was an issue, and I think Scott Hardy deserves a big thank you.
Yeah.
And Steve Simon.
And yes.
Well, now, wait a minute.
Yeah. I didn't say anything about Steve. You should see his commission.
I think we're ready to call the question.
Okay.
Do we have a
roll call?
Roll call.
Yeah.
Mayor Lindsay?
Yes.
Vice Mayor London?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan?
With pleasure, yes.
Councilmember De La Cruz?
Yes.
Councilmember Gross? Councilmember Kelly?
Absolutely, yes.
Ordinance is approved on second reading.
By the way, just as a reminder, we have a workshop March 10th
At 6 p.m.
at 6 p.m. to discuss the potential use of this land. And we'll be making notifications to the adjacent homeowners, but as always, all residents are encouraged to attend.
Thank you.
Next item of the mayor is reports and recommendations. Mayor and council members, appointments to Water and Boat Safety Committee. Mayor Lindsay.
Yes, I have 5 appointments. Amy Easton, Janice Siegel, Natalie Estrella, Scott Sharp, and James LaShaw.
And they're meeting at the yacht club.
And
Did you repeat those?
Excuse me?
Could you repeat them?
Sure.
Amy Easton.
Janice Siegel, Natalie Estrella, Scott Sharp, and Jim LaShaw.
Thank you.
I'll get the spelling for Mr. LaShaw from you.
Just like it sounds, L-E-S-H-A.
L-E-S-H-A-W.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Yeah.
It's Lee Shaw where I come from.
Thank you. Consensus of council for these appointments?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, Madam Mayor, is appointment to the Education Advisory Board. Your item also?
Yes. I got the recommendation of Julie Garcia. I spoke to her. She accepts, and so therefore I'd like to appoint her.
Consensus of council?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is Village Green Playing Fields. Councilmember De La Cruz.
Okay, so I put this item on the agenda so that Steve can give us an update of what's going on with his letters that he sent to the contractor and to the designer, and whether we've gotten any response and what we plan on doing going forward.
Sure. At our last meeting, I told you that we had sent a letter requesting a joint meeting with the contractor and the designers. We had that meeting last week. I believe it was Wednesday afternoon. Could have been Tuesday. In any event, we had about 10 people, both on conference calls and in the room, representing both Stantec as well as Green Source, who was our contractor. There was disagreement in terms of what the actual problem was with respect to the field and why they're not performing well and why they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But the result of the meeting was that Green Source is going to put forward what it believes will solve the problem. And that's not just more of the same. I think that everybody recognized that the current condition with the tweaks that we're doing now is not going to change, that it really needs what they call an aggressive maintenance program. To me, that's more of a restoration, but they refer to it as aggressive maintenance. We've asked them to put together the plan for us. We intend to have Stantec bless that plan, and then we have also decided to have that plan reviewed by an entirely independent expert. And we've had initial conversations with somebody who we think is quite capable, who deals with athletic turf fields, natural turf fields daily, and mostly professional sports fields. So we found somebody, we're going to have them review the plan, and we will come back to you, hopefully, to tell you what that plan is in short order. And then once we get that plan, we'll talk about who's obligated to pay for it. But at the moment, we are still holding our powder, if you will, and without pointing too many fingers, because everybody's goal, I think, is to try to get this thing fixed. I think it's in everybody's interest to get it fixed and done, and from there, then move on and deal with whose fault this is and why it hasn't done what it's supposed to do.
Thank you, Steve. Ed,
Steve, while no one's blaming anybody else, was it your feeling, listening to the contractor, that they did what Stantec told them to do, but that was not adequate, and that's why they're putting a new plan together?
That's not my feeling. That's exactly what they said.
And what was Stantec's response?
Stantec's response is that the fields were being overused and that they were being used prematurely.
Which is totally contrary to what actually went on.
So basically, they're saying that they designed it properly, we're not using it properly.
That's correct.
And if I remember correctly, when we had their expert from Boston, he talked about how many days we could use the field, et cetera. And Todd, have we violated that as far as overusing it?
The answer is no.
Do you keep track of the use of the fields? As far as days and things like that?
They're being underused.
They're being underused?
Yes.
Well, now they're being underused, but we occupied the fields at the point when both Stantec and Green Source told us they were usable.
No,
and the amount of play is totally consistent with the amount of play that we told them that we have, and that both Stantec and Green Source were aware of when they embarked upon this project.
Did Stantec infer that possibly the contractor did not follow the contract specs? And
no.
They did not say that?
No, they didn't. Neither of them pointed the finger at each other. They both pointed their fingers at us.
We're rotten guys. What can I tell you?
Okay, Dr. Kelly?
Who's going to cover the cost of the rehabilitation and this expert?
We're going to, once we have the plan, understand the cost of the plan, we are going to have a discussion with them, and we're also going to be discussing it with the bonding company. There is a bond, and there is an issue here with respect to whether or not that bond covers this. The typical response of the bonding companies is, we bonded the job, it got completed, and we're not bonding warranties, okay? If you've got a problem, then you look to whoever you want to, but that's not the purpose of the bond. That's a typical surety response. We haven't gotten that response yet. They're working with us, so there's still a discussion once we understand the cost of the remedy as to who's going to pay for it. But frankly, I don't know if the remedy they're putting forth is going to be the solution, and that's why we're having somebody independently evaluate the proposal. We are not going to move forward with either Stantec's proposal or Green Source's proposal or their joint proposal until we are confident that it will work. We don't want to be back in the same place again.
Payment and performance bond, assuming that Stantec is saying they did perform according to the contract specs, how can we go against the performance bond? In other words, if the spec, they don't guarantee to grow grass, they were given a contract to follow Stantec spec. And if they did that, and Stantec does not say they didn't do that, how can we go against the performance bond? I don't understand.
They have an obligation to complete the project as it's been designed.
Exactly.
And we believe for the intended use.
No. Intended use, and I'm not a lawyer, but
okay, well,
that's
good.
Construction knowledge.
That's good. And
bonding.
Councilman, that's good, and we don't want to talk about it anymore because I don't want you to argue with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not on this.
All right.
Unless you work for the bonding company.
Just don't want to wait.
Next.
Can I, you want to say something?
Gary, and then, I'm sorry, I thought that was enough for all of us, but I guess I'm wrong.
This is a question. This is not a discussion. I assume that when we receive their mitigation plan or whatever they're giving to us, it's going to have some detail in it as far as what they are going to have to do to remedy this.
It is going to have a lot of detail.
And I assume that some of what's going to be in there is going to either be to tear up and redo part of what they already did, or simply do more than they originally already did to make this usable. So I guess my question is, rather than us coming out of pocket for this whole thing and then trying to get some of it back, when we see what their plan is, might that not give us some kind of an indication as to what kind of cause of action we have against them as far as whether they didn't do a good job or whatever?
I get concerned when we're talking litigation strategy.
Okay.
I don't know how close we are to.
I don't know that we need to get into.
You should talk to them
privately.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you, and but no, I don't. Yes, sure, it might reveal the fact that they believe that something wasn't done right and it should be done differently this time. I don't think that's what they're bringing forward. Okay.
I can tell you that our separate expert that has worked with us in the past told us that the field was not built according to the specs, Stantec specs. So, you got Stantec not wanting to point the finger at the contractor because it's easier to point it at us because they know that we're the fat cow, like we've been treated for many years. So it's not clear as to who's going to have to pay for it.
Mr. Kaplan, did you want to weigh in?
No, I'm
fine. Are we?
Thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to mention something. I want to bring. Maybe I can just talk to the manager about it, but. We need to, I think, get a contractor for the drones while we're waiting for our drones to be approved. As a matter of fact, there's some movement on that, so it could happen pretty quickly. But if it doesn't happen within the next 3 or 4 weeks, having those drones take pictures of the fields is something that would have been a magnificent thing to have from the day one. Every week to see the development or the detrimental effect of the use of it or everything else, and we weren't able to do that. So, depending on what happens with our drones, which we have some movement on it, and I think we may possibly have.
Are we still getting charged for that?
No.
Okay.
But more importantly than that, I think we may have a license soon. So if we do, then we're good, and and we can have our guy take the classes that he has to take in order to be, able to run the drones. But if not, we need to get drones. Well,
I think you can, Mr.
Yeah,
Manager.
well,
That's his job.
I just wanted to let you guys know
Thank you.
that I thought that was a very important thing because it's not just for the playing fields, but just about everything nowadays with the development of drones and what they do, using those even for the dock issue would have been, very easily explainable with pictures,
Okay. Next item. Thank you.
Next item, Madam Mayor, is comments from Councilmember Kaplan regarding the February 19th Mass PTSA newsletter. The bad and the ugly.
Good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay, we've read it. It's obnoxious. It's a piece that I think picks a fight with our village gratuitously and unfairly. And look, people populate institutions. Sometimes, people are intemperate. That happens in life. But when someone goes off intemperately, I think they need to be responded to. And I appreciated what Jackie and Monica had to say this evening. One fact question that I'd like to clear up. I had written a letter to suggest as a response, and I shared it with my colleagues, as I try always to do in advance. I want to send something. I think we need to. When we are provoked, we need to respond. But we also want to be accurate and empirical when we do so, and moderate our own tone and emotions. So I don't want to be angry, but I do want to respond. The question that Jackie broached was concerning a letter that discussed, if I heard her correctly, the ability to park in the area to the front of the field. And I wondered if you could elaborate and let us know just what happened so that we're accurate when we write this letter.
It was a request. The mayor and I had met with the school principal probably 6 or 7 months ago on a separate item, but we knew that this item may come up, and we talked with the school principal at that time. So going back, there were 3 attempts at making sure that the PTSA knew exactly what our position was going to be. Somewhere about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I got an email from Jackie saying that I should reach out to, and I responded to her on what my position was going to be and what we were going to do regarding the ILA. She was good with that. That's what she's referring to. Subsequently, I sent a separate email to the president of the PTSA when she asked at the last minute if she could use the fields, and I told her no, she could not. This was the position. So all Jackie was saying was we had done a number of attempts to make sure that the information was articulated long before the boat show even took place.
So this is accurate?
Yes, sir.
And just the rationale for that was there was programming on the fields, the joint, the fields, and we also made a commitment to our residents and our taxpayers that they would have access to the fields on weekends. So we felt that we needed to, address all the needs and act appropriately. I think that's based on the conversation we had with Principal Odedo.
Okay, so my draft, I think, is accurate. I think it's fair.
And thank you very much. I thought it was perfect tone. I was so upset because of the efforts and the efforts this whole community has made and towards making this work and towards improving the school and improving the facilities and giving opportunities to all the students. And I think you laid it out beautifully and with wonderful tone. I would have been a little more.
We didn't deserve what we got.
No.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you.
Next item of the mayor is status of new stop signs. Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, I wanted the manager to comment. Some of them have been installed. They're almost completely installed in Holiday Colony. And what has happened, or what has to happen in a lot of instances, is because the street sign was placed opposite of the old stop sign, that now when you move the street sign as the vehicle for the new stop sign, it has to go to the opposite side of the street where the old stop sign used to be. So they need to get the new pole, and then they have to take out the old stop sign, put the street sign there, and then add a stop sign to it. But I thought the manager could just update us as to that progress, because I think on the west side of the island, there's not been as much progress as on the Holiday Colony side.
If I may, specifically the west side of the island, once the actual signs went in and I was faced with the sign for the road being on one side of the street, stop sign being on the other, and yet we were able to do it in Holiday Colony, the first thing I did was, and it's just because I'm that that detailed oriented. I wanted to put the stop signs and the street signs on the same location so that when you were going down the street, your stop sign was always on your left, your street sign was always on your left. So that caused us to go back in and reset some signs. Meantime, there were intersections where we could not put the stop sign on the street sign. Those are the poles that have been piecemeal coming out here. They had a deadline. They had contacted me and told me it would be probably the middle of March. And so I didn't want them to wait until the end when they had all the product in. I wanted them to go ahead and do things on a piecemeal basis. They're out here just about every other day. They probably put between 2 and 4 in at a time. We're getting a uniform look, and I am on schedule to having this thing done before the end of March.
I mean, it's fantastic. They really do add to the feel for the whole community, and I just suspect that there are other people like me who was wondering why hasn't, this particular street been done or that street been done. But the bottom line is they are coming.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
This concludes this evening's agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.